Today we're going to be talking about creating basic primitives, how we can manipulate them, copy them, and we're going to take a look at the group tool. So let's go ahead and get started. If I want to create a basic primitive, the first thing I want to do is go to the Create tab. If I want to create something, I'll go to the Create tab. And standard primitives and extended primitives and so on and so forth are under Geometry. So if I go to this drop down, I see that I have a lot of different things that I can create. Today we're going to take a look at standard primitives and extended primitives. So let's start with standard primitives. I have box, sphere, cylinder, so on and so forth. So let's just make a box. So I'm going to choose box and then come back into my view, and I'm going to click and drag while I'm holding my mouse button down, my left mouse button, to get the base of my square. And if you take a look over in the parameters, you can see that as I'm moving the mouse, those parameters are changing as well. Once I let go, then I'm going to drag upwards to get the height of my box. Now here, I can come in and change these properties if I want to under the parameters rollout. So if I want to change this to 25 height, 30 width, and 30 height, I can do that. I also have the opportunity to change the length segments, width segments, and height segments. And what that means, what I did is I turned on so that you can see the edges, and I did that with the F4 key on the keyboard. So F4 will turn that on and off, and you can also see here that it says realistic plus edge faces, and you can also click there if you want to turn that off. Click on realistic if you want, but F4 is quicker. Okay. So if I wanted to add length segments, width segments, or height segments, I can do that from here. Maybe I want to do 5, and now we can see that I have these 5 segments. Maybe 5 here, and maybe 5 here. So now it looks like a box of boxes. I'm going to take those back to 1, because all I want right now is just a basic square. Okay, from here, I can manipulate this shape, or I can copy it if I want to. Let's maybe move. Now, once I did the select and move, you can see that I no longer see my parameters for my box. But if I want to get back to that, maybe there's something that I wanted to change, or I changed my mind, then once I've created an object, if I want to change it or manipulate it, I'll go to the Modify tab. So once I've created it, if I want to change it, manipulate it, or modify it, I'm going to go to the Modify tab. And here again, we'll see all those parameters that we saw when we were creating it. Okay, so if I want to move it, do whatever, I can do that with my tools that we went over in the last video. And if you're not sure about that, then I would invite you to take a look at that video. I believe it's called 3ds Max Basic Tools. If I want to copy this, like maybe I want to have the exact same shape without, what I can do is there's a couple of things I can do. I can either hold down my shift button, and then since I'm in select and move, I'm going to click on one of my axes, click, hold, and drag away, and this will copy my object. And I have this clone options toolbar that comes up. I can either copy it, which means it's just a copy, an instance, which means it's an instant of it. So whatever I change to the main one will also change to the one that I copied. And reference is kind of the same. Now, in later videos, we're going to go over the differences in instance and reference, but for this, just know that it's kind of the same, in that when you change one, another will change as well. I can also change the number of copies that I want to make for my box. So maybe I want 4 of these. And if I want to change the name of my box, so maybe box copy. And when I click OK, then I'll have 4 copies. And my first one is called box copy because that's what we changed it to. My second one is box copy 001, 002, 003, so on and so forth. So once I copy one of these, And let me show you another way. So if we don't want to shift and drag, we can come up to the edit tool, or the edit tool, click edit, and there is a clone. So if I click clone, it will do the same thing the same pop-up that we had before. I can name it whatever. It didn't move it, but I can move it. And a third option, if we saw with edit, it gave us a shortcut key for clone. So Control V will bring up our same box, and we've cloned our object. For any one of these, I can make changes. I can do what I want. Maybe I want to scale it, and that's fine. It'll let me. Okay. So we've looked at we looked at one standard primitive. Maybe let's look at another sphere. And again, we have parameters that we can change. Cylinder. So I'm clicking and holding. When I let go, now I can do the height. If I want to change any of these properties, I can. Whatever it is that I want to change. I've looked at some standard primitives. Now let's look at some extended primitives. So back in my Create tab under Geometry, but instead of standard primitives, I'm going to choose extended primitives. And here I have some other things that I can try creating. So maybe an oil tank. Okay. Maybe a ring wave. And we can change properties, any properties that we want here. Okay. So I would invite you to play around with these, and I can use these shapes to create other shapes. So let's do something really quick with my box. So let's create this here, and I'm going to bring this up, and maybe scale it. Maybe now I've got some kind of little countertop going. Or maybe I want it to be a desk, so maybe I'll pull this one out a little bit, scale it. Maybe I have one big drawer here. Make all kinds of things just with the primitive shapes. Okay, the next thing I would like to talk about is grouping. And grouping is important because what it allows you to do is take several things and put them in one group. So when you select one object, it will select everything in that group. So what I'm going to do is select a couple of these things. Maybe I'll select these three things here. And then up next to my Edit, Tools, and Group, I'm going to go to Group, create a group. I can create a group name. So let's just say, I don't know, shapes. Sounds good. And now when I click on that one object, all three things are in that object. So maybe let's create a group for this. And let's say desk. Why not? And that way, when I select one thing from that desk, I have everything in that group. Now, for some reason, if I want to add to a group, so what I can do is I can select an object that I want to be part of this group, go to attach, and attach it to a group that's already created. So now when I go to create that, or when I go to move that object, it moves the entire group. If I decide I don't want that object to be in the group, then I have to go up to group, choose open. Now I can choose things individually in my group, choose that ring wave, go back to group, and detach it. And now it's not part of that group anymore. So what we did is we went over some basic ways to create different types of geometry, looking at the standard primitives and extended primitives. What I would do is say, play around with these. There are some of them that we will go more in depth, but for right now, play around with those standard primitives, play around with the extended primitives, make these objects, change them, manipulate them, modify them within the Modify tab, create a couple of groups, add to the group, take away from the group, and just play around with it until you're comfortable with those tools. Until then.